In the grand, opulent space of a midtown Manhattan ballroom, shimmering under the glittering glow of crystal chandeliers, an evening charity gala was unfolding. Along the walls, decorated with classic ornate patterns, silk drapes were deftly tied into bows, elevating the luxurious ambience of an event that had drawn famous figures from all over the United States. Prominent entrepreneurs, veteran politicians, entertainment icons, and of course, a multitude of reporters from major networks such as CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. They all converged here with one shared purpose: to raise funds for a program supporting the education of underprivileged children. A refined, respectful atmosphere pervaded the room as Hollywood's biggest stars entered, greeted by camera flashes and the watchful gaze of seasoned political personalities. Though dressed for a glamorous evening, everyone understood that this was more than a night to shine in expensive attire. It was also an opportunity to contribute both financial resources and personal influence, all to support a charity effort being championed nationwide. Many people had already donated online, yet still chose to attend in person to connect, network, and unite for this noble cause. Right at the main entrance of the ballroom, the organizers had placed large posters featuring portraits of children from various states: Texas, Florida, California, and from underdeveloped areas in the Midwestern United States. Each young face told its own story of aspiration and resilience, moving anyone who paused for a closer look. That was precisely why the event held such significance. Every heartfelt contribution was directed toward a brighter future for the next generation. Even from the start, murmurs spread about the rumored arrival of a special guest. The speculation proved true. Melania Trump, the former First Lady of the United States. Despite her husband, former President Donald Trump, being embroiled in countless political controversies in recent years, Melania had seemingly maintained her poised, dignified image. Few people knew for certain what she intended to say tonight, but most agreed that her presence would make for an unforgettable moment in this charitable gathering. Some of the guests animatedly discussed her choice of attire. Under the dazzling lights, her floor-length, deep blue gown, expertly tailored, accentuated her distinctive elegance. She received plenty of compliments from politicians and business leaders alike who stood conversing nearby. People also recalled her past advocacy for children during her time in the White House, particularly the Be Best initiative focusing on health, education, and battling cyberbullying. From one corner of the room, several European journalists whispered about the media effect that the former First Lady could generate. They snapped photos continuously, noting each gesture, ready for their international reports. Across the room, American television crews were also setting up, waiting for the moment Melania Trump would step onto the stage. The event's main MC, a veteran broadcaster from an East Coast network, had hinted that her speech would relate to children's education in a rapidly advancing technological world, a crucial topic for an America striving to rebuild its school systems in the wake of the pandemic. The excitement in the air carried a touch of tension. Guests sipped white wine or light cocktails, exchanged business cards, and discussed everything from corporate deals to government policies. On stage, a jazz band accompanied the scene with languid saxophone melodies, evoking the grandiose feeling typical of high-profile American events. Meanwhile, a few groups of young attendees clustered near the foyer, taking photos in front of the charity's branded backdrop. This was the 4.0 era on full display. Within minutes, those pictures were uploaded to social media, garnering thousands of likes almost instantly. People were also buzzing about another notable figure, David Calloway, a prominent political reporter known for his liberal views and for frequently criticizing conservative policies. His presence at a purely philanthropic event, seemingly void of political friction, had some attendees curious. Would he once again deploy his usual confrontational tactics? Or was this merely a cordial appearance to polish his image? No one felt sure of Calloway's intentions, yet there was a palpable sense that something unexpected might occur. After all, the sheer number of cameras and recorders in attendance could instantly capture and disseminate any tense moment across the internet at lightning speed. When the gentle background music began to fade, the MC stepped forward, a warm smile on his face. He offered a brief introduction to the charity's mission, thanking all the sponsors and benefactors who had lent their support. Then, with ceremony, he invited Melania Trump to the stage. Her footsteps resonated softly on the polished wooden floor, the hem of her gown swaying gracefully with each step. All eyes in the room turned toward this pivotal moment, as if welcoming a queen ascending her resplendent throne. Melania grasped the microphone with composure. Her voice, still colored by a distinct European accent, was steady and clear. She began with a warm greeting, expressing her honor in returning to New York, where she had created so many memories and where she had lived before moving to the White House. She spoke of her deep gratitude for the individuals who had championed her dedication to children's education. Applause, scattered at first, rose here and there, boosting her poise. Her speech was concise, yet encompassed every vital point. Melania highlighted the importance of equipping children with the skills they need to thrive, not just academically but also in life, particularly in a rapidly transforming American society. She shared her intention to support upcoming programs, including scholarships for promising students in states like Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, areas hit hard by economic challenges, and expanded mental health resources to combat school violence. Her words flowed smoothly, and the audience seemed to hold its breath in rapt attention. Although many in the room may not have aligned politically with the Trump family, Melania's sincerity in talking about children struck a chord, moving hearts. Some nodded approvingly, others pulled out their phones to record, hoping to share her message on social media. From one corner, a businessman smiled at his wife, whispering, "Whatever people say, she sure knows how to connect with the crowd." As she concluded, Melania spoke of her hope that, with love and empathy, we can all join together to build a better future for the next generation. Her call to action was simple and direct, brimming with humanitarian values, untainted by politics. Perhaps some had expected her to clap back or make a shocking statement about her husband, but none of that happened. Melania finished her speech with a gentle smile. The entire hall erupted into applause. The standing ovation stretched on, proof that the attendees appreciated her apolitical approach. Yet, while hands were still clapping, a man's voice abruptly broke through, shattering the solemn air. The sound of a microphone crackled, and the name David Calloway rose audibly from the front rows. Surprise flickered across Melania's face. She paused, awaiting whatever question or statement he was about to deliver. The room fell silent. Many turned toward David Calloway, the famed political journalist known for his liberal stance. He stood tall in a black suit and deep red tie, gripping his microphone as if it were a weapon. Guests familiar with his hardball questioning style on political talk shows now wondered why he was adopting this approach at a purely philanthropic gathering. Calloway spoke up with a combative question, unwavering in its aggressiveness. In essence, he challenged Melania on how she felt being tied to her husband's agenda of dividing the country. A faint shock rippled through the crowd. Calloway's words cut through the warmth of the charity event, swift and sharp like a blade. Those standing closest to him exchanged irritated glances, instantly recognizing that this was no typical Q&A about charitable work. Melania's posture grew a bit more upright, her lips parted slightly as though to speak, but Calloway refused to let her answer. He continued, listing a series of political accusations about how former President Donald Trump had fueled hatred and deepened the rifts in American society. He even mocked the idea that Melania considered herself a role model for children, given the ethical and legal allegations surrounding her husband. Around the room, onlookers' faces began to shift from mere curiosity to disapproval. Within an event celebrating charity and education, Calloway's politically charged, provocative line of questioning struck everyone like a jolt. A handful of other reporters seemed intrigued, sensing a potential viral moment playing out. They rushed to record or live stream, but the majority were upset. They had come to support children in need, not to witness a heated debate. They stared at Calloway with wary expressions, some shaking their heads, as if silently saying, "This is not the time." Melania stood quietly, carefully maintaining her composure. She had weathered her fair share of tough media scrutiny while in the White House. But perhaps she hadn't expected to be targeted again, so overtly, at a charity event meant to be free of political antagonism. The audience held its collective breath, waiting to see how she would respond. Most assumed she would defend herself or at least try to steer the conversation away. But before she could say a word, a fresh, younger voice echoed from the back of the room. All heads swung in the direction of that voice, and few could believe their eyes when they saw it belonged to Barron Trump. The youngest son of Donald and Melania Trump, now 17, had grown significantly taller since his days in the White House. Wearing a well-fitted suit, his light brown hair carefully groomed, Barron's calm demeanor was unmistakable. Instead of shrinking from the spotlight, he strode forward, crossing rows of lavishly set tables, making his way directly to the stage, where Melania stood facing Calloway's relentless attacks. The tension in the room climbed sharply. Hardly anyone had witnessed Barron Trump speak out publicly, especially not in response to criticisms aimed at his mother. He stopped just in front of the stage, his gaze steady, unflinching. Calloway, apparently taken aback, narrowed his eyes with a competitive glint, as though setting his sights on a new target. Barron glanced briefly at his mother, nodding slightly, as if to reassure her. Then he turned to Calloway, his voice calm yet resonant enough to fill the hushed hall. "Please show some respect. This is a charity event to help children in need, not a place to turn into a political battleground." The statement was short, but it cut straight to the heart of Calloway's confrontational tactic. A few guests broke into applause at Barron's boldness, though many still stood in silent astonishment. Calloway arched a brow, smirking. "Oh, really, young man? You think you can lecture me on journalism?" His tone dripped with condescension. Yet Barron showed no sign of being provoked. He stood tall, exuding a composure that unnerved Calloway. The reporter tried to press on, but Barron deftly took charge again. All heads swung in the direction of that voice, and few could believe their eyes when they saw it belonged to Barron Trump. The youngest son of Donald and Melania Trump, now 17, had grown significantly taller since his days in the White House. Wearing a well-fitted suit, his light brown hair carefully groomed, Barron's calm demeanor was unmistakable. Instead of shrinking from the spotlight, he strode forward, crossing rows of lavishly set tables, making his way directly to the stage, where Melania stood facing Calloway's relentless attacks. The tension in the room climbed sharply. Hardly anyone had witnessed Barron Trump speak out publicly, especially not in response to criticisms aimed at his mother. He stopped just in front of the stage, his gaze steady, unflinching. Calloway, apparently taken aback, narrowed his eyes with a competitive glint, as though setting his sights on a new target. Barron glanced briefly at his mother, nodding slightly, as if to reassure her. Then he turned to Calloway, his voice calm yet resonant enough to fill the hushed hall. "Please show some respect. This is a charity event to help children in need, not a place to turn into a political battleground." The statement was short, but it cut straight to the heart of Calloway's confrontational tactic. A few guests broke into applause at Barron's boldness, though many still stood in silent astonishment. Calloway arched a brow, smirking. "Oh, really, young man? You think you can lecture me on journalism?" His tone dripped with condescension. Yet Barron showed no sign of being provoked. He stood tall, exuding a composure that unnerved Calloway. The reporter tried to press on, but Barron deftly took charge again. The energy in the ballroom shifted visibly. Some older, high-profile guests from Wall Street discreetly applauded. Others shouted, "Exactly." One prominent female donor stood to praise Barron openly, giving him a warm, supportive look, symbolic of their collective dedication to children. TV camera crews zoomed in on Barron, recognizing they were capturing a rare moment, a teenager from the Trump family, demonstrating his own brand of poise, facing off a seasoned reporter without flinching. All the while, Melania Trump stood behind him, resting a gentle hand on her son's shoulder, silently showing her approval. Her expression radiated pride, although her demeanor remained understated. Their glances betrayed a special bond. From initially wishing to avoid conflict, they now confronted it together, making it clear that no one had the right to hijack an event dedicated to charity for personal attacks. The support for Barron grew. Applause rang out. Guests murmured to each other in astonishment at how confidently he responded to an onslaught of accusations. Here and there, people began filming with their phones, preparing to post short clips on TikTok, Twitter, or Instagram under titles like "Barron Trump defends his mother from the media." Thus, the evening inched closer to becoming a grand stage for a dramatic showdown between a veteran journalist and a teenager claiming his own voice for the first time. Trying to salvage his advantage, David Calloway hardened his stance. He cleared his throat and spoke loudly, declaring that journalists had every right to challenge and expose the truth, no matter who the subject might be or where it took place. Yet, as he aired these opinions in a ballroom devoted to a charitable cause unrelated to politics, many in the audience grew visibly weary. It dawned on them that Calloway's vitriolic tone seemed more about drawing attention to himself rather than uncovering any legitimate wrongdoing. Barron listened silently, not interrupting. Only after Calloway's final words did Barron speak again, in a measured tone that carried weight. "I support the principle of free press, but this is not the time or place to make my mother a political target. If you genuinely want to learn about her charity work, you can ask anyone here or review the publicly available records. Yet right here, tonight, you've chosen to confront her with accusations that feel more like hostility than sincere inquiry." Some guests and journalists began pulling out their phones to verify details about Melania's charity efforts. Meanwhile, Calloway grew increasingly agitated. Sensing the room's sympathy had drifted to Barron, he lashed out once more, implying that Barron, raised in privilege, could never truly grasp the real world outside his family's ivory tower. But this attack seemed to backfire. A doctor from Chicago standing near the VIP section shook his head and murmured to his wife, "He's just a teenager standing up for his mother. What's wrong with that?" With the event gaining momentum, Barron pushed forward decisively. He set down the microphone, folded his arms, and stared directly at Calloway. "If you believe your words to be true, why not ask my mother about her outreach to orphans in Dallas, Texas, or her program providing tuition aid for kids in Orlando, Florida? She has spent time and effort in those places, even rallying support from philanthropists in fashion and the arts. Tonight, she only wants to focus on the issue of educating children. Yet you've turned it into a personal vendetta." The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Barron's comment laid bare an undeniable point. If Calloway genuinely sought to uncover truth, he could have delved into the substance of Melania's charitable initiatives instead of accusing her under the guise of tough questions. Dozens of donors in the audience conveyed empathy with their eyes, clearly siding with Barron. They saw that he wasn't lacking in logic. More importantly, he was steadfast in placing the charity's mission first. Meanwhile, murmurs intensified at the edges of the venue. People whispered that footage of this showdown would undoubtedly spread like wildfire online. It was undeniably compelling. A 17-year-old, supposedly overshadowed and reserved, standing his ground with remarkable poise against a veteran political journalist. Many predicted Calloway would face significant backlash for choosing the wrong setting and the wrong target for a sensationalized confrontation. Still, Calloway held on, even as it became clear he was fighting an uphill battle. He tried to sneer, claiming Barron was defending an undeserving role model. Yet there was a tremor of uncertainty in his voice. He could see the audience wasn't on his side. Possibly he was already regretting his harsh approach. At this juncture, any hope of Calloway reversing the situation was slim. A well-dressed gentleman with salt and pepper hair, wearing a stylish tuxedo, rose to speak. "Tonight is about the children all across America. Those who can't afford proper schooling, those burdened by family hardship. We're here to raise funds. We want no part in this political takedown." His words found an immediate, resounding echo. A renewed round of applause followed. Melania silently watched it all, her eyes reflecting pride and a tinge of emotion. Clearly, she realized that Barron had come of age, aware enough to oppose unfair criticism. She patted his arm lightly, a small but heartfelt gesture of gratitude. Meanwhile, some reporters exchanged bewildered looks, realizing that while this confrontation might dominate headlines, it was likely to make Calloway look more like the villain. Barron, seeing that Calloway still hovered, maintained his courteous yet firm tone. "I'm not asking you to support or praise my family. I merely want you to remember that we're here tonight for the same mission, raising funds for children. If you truly believe in kindness, please respect those who are trying to help. My mother may be married to a controversial figure, but she has always strived to do good. That is a truth that cannot be denied." Thunderous applause erupted once again, accentuated by scattered cheers like, "That's right," or "Keep going." The collective sentiment favored Barron. Calloway glanced around, hoping to find backup from fellow reporters, but no one stepped up. Clearly, they wanted no part in a widely criticized ambush. Realizing the impossibility of turning the tide, Calloway gave a last derisive shrug. However, almost no one cared to listen further. Most attendees were already chatting amongst themselves or clapping for Barron and Melania, while some major donors seemed visibly displeased with the Calloway for derailing an event meant to focus on charitable goals. As Calloway lowered his microphone, scowling, Barron simply bowed his head politely and turned toward his mother. He didn't need to say more. The entire ballroom silently acknowledged that the 17-year-old, standing up for his mother and the charity's purpose, had emerged victorious. Moments later, applause swelled throughout the room, celebrating both mother and son. Melania smoothed Barron's lapel with a proud smile. That simple gesture spoke volumes. It affirmed their close family bond while signaling that Barron was stepping out of the shadows and coming into his own. Calloway, feeling conspicuously out of place, retreated to his seat. Many in the audience speculated on how this episode might affect his reputation. Perhaps he had never anticipated losing to a teenage boy, especially the child of a former president, in front of hundreds of onlookers. Yet here it was, unfolding in real time, and the media would not let it slip by unnoticed. The MC returned, eager to restore the convivial, philanthropic atmosphere. He earnestly thanked Melania for her speech and commended Barron for his courage and maturity. The applause continued unabated, fueled by a wave of optimism when the event organizers announced that donations had already surpassed their initial goal. Hundreds of contributions from across America poured in online, and many guests, emboldened by the night's uplifting spirit, generously wrote checks on the spot. In the height of excitement, a female entrepreneur from Washington State stepped on stage, presenting an oversized donation check worth hundreds of thousands of brioles to the charity. She shared that the scene she had witnessed just moments ago reminded her that having or lacking wealth wasn't the point. What mattered was a heart inclined towards service. It was a message that perfectly echoed the gala's mission, using one's influence and resources to help those who need it most. Melania graciously bowed in thanks, then slipped backstage with Barron. Several reporters immediately rushed after them, hoping for an interview, but security personnel and event staff politely intervened, requesting they wait until the program concluded or set up a separate appointment. From a distance, one could see Melania's contented smile, while Barron calmly held her hand, whispering something that made her laugh softly. Near the side of the ballroom, the gentle strains of jazz music resumed, gradually easing away any lingering tension. Many guests returned to mingling, cocktails in hand, though it was evident that the centerpiece of their conversations would be the unexpected appearance and remarkable confrontation between Barron Trump and David Calloway. A small group of younger attendees huddled together, gushing about how the scene would play out on social media. They were certain it would go viral, propelling Barron Trump into the public eye thanks to his unwavering poise in the face of sharp criticism. Behind the stage, Melania and Barron took a moment to catch their breath, sipping water and conferring briefly with event organizers. Applause continued in the main hall as presentations about the supported projects resumed, plans to aid communities across the nation. One of the organizers expressed admiration. "Young Barron is incredibly brave. Thank you, Mrs. Melania, for coming and making tonight even more successful than we had hoped." Melania smiled in return, explaining that her sole aim was to unite people in supporting children. She also emphasized how grateful she was that no one had lost sight of the event's real purpose, despite the earlier disruption. Privately, some organizers ventured that Barron's viral moment could spur even more donations in the coming days. A staff member handed Barron a bottle of water, asking if he wanted to make any further statement. Barron shook his head gently. He preferred to stay at his mother's side, watch the rest of the program, and ensure no one else ambushed her. This marked the first time he had actively spoken up in a public setting, and the wave of positive reactions left him feeling more confident. Elsewhere in the venue, David Calloway was huddling with a group of reporters, looking visibly rattled. He seemed to be trying to spin the narrative or claim that he had merely been seeking clarity. But his fellow journalists didn't show much interest, recognizing that he had crossed a precarious line between legitimate reporting and personal attack at a charity event. The contrast between his earlier swagger and his current unease was stark, a reminder that even a few short minutes of live confrontation could upend everything. In this digital age, it was hardly surprising that the evening's events in the ballroom promptly exploded online. On Twitter, numerous attendees posted videos of Barron challenging Calloway, racking up thousands of retweets and comments within the hour. Even individuals who hadn't been supporters of the Trump family found themselves applauding Barron's composure. One influential entertainment account in Los Angeles tweeted, "Whether you love or hate Trump, Barron just showed real maturity, and that's rare in any generation." Similarly, clips surfaced on Instagram and TikTok. Many users added dramatic soundtracks, subtitles, or playful memes. Yet most revolved around a common theme. Barron Trump deserved admiration for defending his mother and safeguarding the noble purpose of a charity event. Some joked, "Role reversal, a veteran reporter gets cornered by the son of his interview subject. And not everyone can silence David Calloway, but that kid just did." Because of this massive online response, the charity gala, initially expected to attract a moderate circle of attention, suddenly captured nationwide interest. Cable news channels dispatched their own teams to gather details, examine every angle, and parse every snippet of footage. Analysts began to ask, is this a sign that Barron Trump might step out of his parents' shadow and craft his own path in the future? Back in the ballroom, an hour remained until the event wound down. A lavish buffet spread awaited, complete with Maine lobster, premium Texas beef, and beautifully decorated pastries. Benefactors, dignitaries, and celebrity guests wandered about, networking leisurely. Melania and Barron also made an appearance, greeting well-wishers. She spoke softly about expanding the fund's reach, expressing gratitude for any support offered by individuals, corporations, and nonprofits. Though still somewhat shy, Barron flashed a polite smile whenever someone praised him. An elderly philanthropist told him quietly, "Young man, you just taught many grown-ups a lesson in respect." Barron, staying humble, replied that he only did what he felt necessary to protect his mother and keep the event focused on helping children. He wasn't aspiring to be a political or media sensation, yet the evening was undeniably a turning point, dramatically reshaping how the public perceived Barron Trump. As for Melania, she saw in her son a new maturity. Once a timid child who avoided cameras, Barron had grown more self-assured, shaped, perhaps ironically, by the very political storms they had endured over the years. Sometimes hardship and criticism serve as the very furnace in which courage is forged. As the clock neared midnight, the jazz band pivoted to soft ballads, adding a peaceful backdrop for the final conversations of the night. The MC took the stage once more, proudly announcing the evening's outstanding fundraising total. The crowd greeted the news with lively applause. He offered special thanks to Melania Trump for attending and sharing her heartfelt perspectives on children's education. This time, Barron accompanied his mother back on stage, and they both bowed to the attendees. Camera flashes fired off in rapid succession. Everyone wanted a snapshot of that moment, a moment no longer defined by political tension, but by a powerful image of maternal devotion and philanthropic spirit. The buzz in the crowd was overwhelmingly positive, with many predicting that the night's happenings would dominate media coverage for days. Away from the spotlights, David Calloway had already slipped out. He left the gala sooner than planned, blending into the departing crowd. No one stopped him, but neither did anyone see him off with parting words. His exit resembled that of a defeated contender, not forcibly ejected, but stripped of support in a room that had rallied around Melania and Barron. The ambush he had plotted had backfired, tarnishing his image instead of the Trump's. In the limousine carrying them away from Midtown Manhattan, Barron sat beside Melania. Night had fallen, and the glow from the street lamps spilled across the avenue in soft golden arcs. Passing by Manhattan's towering skyscrapers, icons of a city that never sleeps, Barron leaned back, thoughtful. Melania rested a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Thank you for standing up for me tonight." Barron, a bit sheepish, asked if she was all right. Melania responded with a gentle smile and affection in her eyes. She reminded him that sometimes preserving goodness and compassion means being ready to speak up, even if it means inviting a tempest of public attention. He nodded in quiet understanding, aware that this moment would remain a significant memory for them both. As the car approached the Queensboro Bridge, en route to Long Island, Barron found himself reflecting on the changes tomorrow would bring, when tonight's events flooded social media and national news outlets. He wasn't entirely sure he wanted to become an internet sensation, but he sincerely hoped people wouldn't lose sight of the main purpose, helping children, by focusing solely on the drama. No one can say exactly what lies ahead for Barron Trump. Perhaps he'll keep prioritizing his studies, shunning the spotlight, or perhaps he'll carve out his own niche in the public domain, forging his own ideals. Regardless, tonight proved that he is no longer the silent boy from the White House. He has grown, prepared to face challenges and defend the values he holds dear. Meanwhile, Melania will press on with her charitable efforts, focusing specifically on educational programs for children across America. Initiatives that will reach the suburbs of Philadelphia, small towns in Indiana, or impoverished communities near the border. Despite the controversies that continue to swirl around them, there is no denying the sincerity of their commitment to community-based work. That night's gala, brimming with emotional highs and lows, left an indelible mark on everyone present. From the influential Wall Street donors to Hollywood celebrities jetting in from Los Angeles, and the newly graduated media professionals just embarking on their careers. Each person would remember the moment a 17-year-old boy stepped forward, demanding respect for his mother and for the charitable mission at hand. This story remains unfinished. It will undoubtedly spark more commentary, interviews, and political debates. Yet the lessons on empathy, on calm resilience in the face of prejudice, and on the importance of staying focused on a common goal, helping children, will linger in everyone's hearts. Thank you for following this narrative. If you found it compelling and wish to explore more inspiring stories, please subscribe to Stories Tales Best. Don't forget to enable notifications so you never miss any new content in the future.